Hello. Our story begins inside the Jedi High Council chambers, where a notion by Shakti was brought up. She expressed concern over the Fives incident. Each of the respective members were surprised she brought this up again. The incident went by about a week ago. The inoculation provided by Nala Se and Chancellor Palpatine had already made their rounds across the galaxy, and in the clone army. But Shakti wasn't convinced that an actual inoculation had taken place. The Jedi asked what she meant, and she explained that out here on Kamino, she was familiar with the constant testing, shots, and medicine the clones received. From cadets to adults to even the rejected clones, they all had reactions to shots. Shakti had arrived to Kamino following the single wave of shots that were mass distributed across the clone army after the Fives incident. While she said the evidence wasn't conclusive, she was able to determine that throughout her time on Kamino in the past 2 years, she had seen numerous clones react to the effects of various medical shots. Some of these could be back to shots after a bad run through the simulations, or simply preemptive shots to prevent disease on campaigns. Shakti typically saw hundreds of clones a day. Just for pure amusement with herself, she had counted them up for the span of a week and came to the conclusion that she saw an average of 1,200 clones a day, but only personally interacted with around 340. Following inoculation days, 3 or 4 out of every 10 clones would have reactions, like feverish behavior or even somewhat lethargic. Shakti never addressed this at those times, but if a soldier wasn't feeling up to their task, she would give them a chance to have the day for themselves. At that, she came back around to the most recent wave of inoculations following the Fives incident. The clones inside Tipoca City showed no adverse reaction to the shots they were given. Maybe she was overthinking these things, maybe it wasn't as deep as she thought it was. But she had known Clone Trooper Fives for years. They had interacted before he and his pod brothers were heroes of the Rishi outpost. She had seen him get elevated to the rank of ARC Trooper following his heroic defense of Kamino with his podmate, Echo. When said brother died, he didn't lose his mind, and that brought her back to the one named Top. Shakti sighed. She knew that she wasn't a scientist, and she didn't have anything aside from personal interaction with the clones. But she couldn't just let this go. She watched over the clones and cared for them with kindness, compassion, and even potentially love. The fact that one of her boys was killed and their reason for death got covered up didn't sit well with her. Shakti expressed that if they didn't want to take her concerns with legitimacy, she understood. Fives had crossed the line when he threatened Palpatine, but she personally couldn't help but see the writing on the wall. Something was out of place here, and if her position on the council gave her the jurisdiction to make such claims, and or acknowledgements to the wisest minds of the Order, then she would. It was the right thing to do, for the clones and for Fives. The counselors looked to each other. Master Yoda believed that her input should be taken with seriousness. Yoda told Shakti that if the Force was guiding her to investigate this further, then she should. She wanted to ask permission from the council before delving deep into Kaminoan information. Her doing this could rupture the trust between the Jedi, the Republic, and the Kaminoans. She didn't want to totally destroy those relationships with so much riding on this information, if it even existed. Yoda shook his head. Go swiftly she must. If the Kaminoans were hiding information, cover it up they would. The secrets could already be lost. Shakti bowed her head and turned off her hologram. With permission from the High Council and Jedi Protocol giving her a chance to discover the secrets surrounding Clone Trooper 5's descension into madness and whatever else the Kaminoans may have been hiding from them, Shakti spent days scouring information from the Kaminoan archives, and even sneaking in the Nala Se's personal lab at night. But there were no documents on anything relating to the recent drug that was supposed to go out. This was really puzzling. Aside from never sneaking around the labs before, Shakti knew that Nala Se was meticulous with everything she did. If Nala Se had a real cure for a real disease from Ringo Vinda, then there would be records on it, so that she could revisit and provide the proper antidote if something came from Ringo Vinda again, or if a virus mutated, but nothing existed. This led Shakti to learning that blanks had been given, because something was hidden. These blanks didn't have any medicine in them, they were just liquid vials of nothing. So at that, where was she supposed to go? Well, Shakti had, due to her research inside the Kaminoan Hall of Records, been able to find information regarding inhibitor chips. Since Shakti was trying to learn more about the Fives case, she searched for the whole inhibitor chip thing at the same time. The only reason she decided to do this was because after having a challenging time finding out about the inoculation, she believed that there was foul play at hand. With it becoming immediately present that there was, she knew that the only way to understand it was to dig at the root of the cause. A couple more days passed, and Shakti had found something unnerving. However, her time was up. With a message delivered to the Jedi Temple, the Kaminoans revealed to Dooku that a Jedi Master was snooping around their archives. Because Shakti was a Jedi General, no one thought anything of her being in the archives or walking around at night, when most of the city was sleeping. She spent a lot of time learning about Kamino and the cloning technology when she was first assigned to it, but this was clear that she was doing something to thwart their efforts. Lord Tyrannus ordered her execution, and Shakti would be killed in her sleep by a quote-unquote rogue bomb. While moving materials from one side of the city to another, the mechanical droid blew up a crate of explosives outside of her room. Inside the Jedi Temple, the information revealed to the Council by Master Windu was unnerving. He read everything that Shakti sent to them because she happened to be missing for their meeting time. They didn't know that she was killed. The information she recovered reached Coruscant the same day she died, so without her, May stumbled through the information she gave to them. They knew that Tyrannus was behind the clone army curation, but there was something else. This Tyrannus individual operated off of Sereno, based on multiple communications between Kamino and Sereno. On top of that, the Kaminoans also had a list of contingency orders, most of which was pretty difficult to decipher for Shakti, but she could figure out that there were orders for destroying the Jedi, replacing all government officials, chancellor control over the government, and multiple coup options and some execution orders for various groups, political or civilian. The list wasn't fully made up, but it gave proof that someone within the Republic, and this likely Dooku, Tyrannus individual, had the power to collapse the entire Republic within minutes. What Fives had done wasn't attack Palpatine. He attacked someone who could completely override the motor function of the entire clone army. Fives may have been out of his mind, but his duty to his brothers and the Republic was never out of line. He was trying to stop something heinous from happening. Now the Jedi needed to react to it. Master Mundi suggested sending Jedi investigators to the Senate and executive buildings in secrecy. They knew someone was constantly in control of all the executive orders. Plo asked if that could work. Theoretically speaking, if there was an individual with the power to completely wipe out the Republic, Jedi, or any other political rival, then surely they wouldn't keep that information inside those buildings. The Republic ran thousands of security measures weekly, especially during the times of war. No one would be able to frame things in a manner to keep it hidden from these autonomous checks. This, of course, wasn't the case unless it was the Chancellor or someone who had bypassed Republic security. There posed another problem, one that Master Saci Tin addressed. If the Council was sending investigators into the Senate and executive buildings, then they could be found by the culprits. That wouldn't bode well for their current status politically. It was no secret that the Order had lost public favorability, being that Dooku was a former Jedi and they were fighting on the front lines of the war. They all nodded in agreement. Saci worried of the implications of actually committing to this plan. As Windu was about to suggest an idea, they received a communication. Plo, by the door, got up and dimmed the light so they could take it. From the center of the room rose a blue hologram, one of the Kaminoan Prime Minister Lama Su. He told the Council of his unfortunate news. Jedi General Shakti had been killed during an explosion inside the facilities today. Alongside her death were the deaths of a couple service clones who happened to accidentally trigger a detonation of explosives in transit, killing themselves, a party of troopers nearby, and the Jedi General. He apologized for their loss and told them that he would make sure they had all the preparations to ensure Master Shakti could be brought back to their temple. Mace directed his voice forward with a commanding boom, informing the Kaminoan that the Council would dispatch Jedi to Kamino to receive the Jedi Master who had passed. He thanked him for his transparency, to which Lama Su bowed and turned off the communication device. Windu turned to Kit Fisto and Eth Koth. They'd be sent to Kamino to receive Shakti. He then informed the duo to look deeper into the death of their friend. The Jedi here on Coruscant now needed to go forth and begin the next leg of this investigation. The end of the war was nigh, and the Order could not be caught flat-footed again. The rest of the Council in unison completely agreed to this direction, and they prepared to send their members to the Senate and executive buildings for separate investigations. Being that the Council only needed proof of Dooku being involved in the Kaminoan works, the Jedi began expanding their horizons to start searching for answers from Sereno. A task force of clones were sent to do this mission. Thankfully, the Bad Batch was a very trustworthy group for this, and due to how top secret they were, chances are that no one would question the move. With the Bad Batch working in tandem with the Order, a dozen or so students of legendary Jedi investigator Tara Sinube began their infiltration of Republic political buildings. Everything was a slow burn for the Jedi. They didn't want to rush things, but they also kind of had to. Everything came together at the same time, though. Count Dooku was off of Sereno for a separate mission, and thanks to Plo Koon's finds on the Felucia moon, the Jedi were able to track a long-forgotten case to Obadiah, the homeworld of the Pike Syndicate. This trail was important because, just like the information revealed by the Bad Batch, it proved that Tyrannus was Dooku, and Dooku was responsible for the creation of the clone army. With Silman dying on the planet before being able to reveal his confession, the Jedi were left with the information returned to them by the Bad Batch, proof that Dooku had communicated with the Kaminoans before. Now, investigators on Kamino were trying to prove that the connection went both ways, which should be relatively easy, all things considered. The Sith Lord, Palpatine, was aware that something was happening, but he wasn't fully sure. Due to the way the Jedi investigators handled things, everything the Council was ordering went under the radar. Jedi investigators had a long-standing relationship with different police and enforcement groups across Coruscant. This allowed the investigators to trade their Jedi uniforms for Alderaanian Guard uniforms, Senate Guardsman gear, and a number of other different arrangements to conceal their identities. It worked like a charm, too. Because if the Jedi were walking around the halls of either building at night, it would have gotten attention or suspicion. But Senate guards and even senators' personal units, as well as representatives, and so forth, got access to both buildings at night and wouldn't be questioned for being there. Security for the Republic was high, but again, thanks to these relationships established over the past couple centuries, they would be able to work in tandem with everyone to get this job done. It took a little more than 2 weeks following Shakti's untimely death for the Jedi to get their answers. As it turned out, there were secret contingency orders within Palpatine's personal computer system. It was a nightmare trying to get it, but in the process, the Jedi busted Masameda. The man was good at making himself deals that worked out for him. At the promise of receiving a political boost for selling out Palpatine, he would take the risk. The upset of the status quo, especially with the Jedi trying to expose Palpatine, could fundamentally divide the Republic. But if Mas sided with the Jedi, they could win the war with the Order, and he could get the political leverage for himself. He had served with 2 chancellors. Why not become one or keep up the game? It was a win-win for himself, and that's all that mattered to Masameda. But since the Jedi had figured out the key, there was no point to protecting Palpatine anymore. The following day, the Jedi Council would dispatch all of its members. Mace and Yoda were going to the Senate to inform the Republic of Palpatine's actions. Obi-Wan, Stas Ali, Kit Fisto, and Eth Koth were going to get confessions from the Kaminoans, and the remaining members of the Council, Kiaremundi, Plo Koon, Oppo Rancisis, Saci Tin, and Agan Kolar, would go to Sereno with the Bad Batch to get their confession from Count Dooku. It was perfectly planned, and when Masters Yoda and Mace took the stand, they delivered a resounding speech. The 2 Jedi addressed the Senate and the wider Republic, informing them that for over 1,000 generations the Jedi had been the guardians of peace and justice of the Republic. They had helped them settle scores with evil, brooding empires, resist the onslaught of pirate syndicates and the Nile, oversaw the golden age of the Republic, and now, here, protected them during the Republic's most trying time. Master Yoda explained that it had been his life's work to take care of the people of the galaxy, and serve the many trillions of sentients that lived within it. As the Clone Wars got more intense, it had become clear that the Jedi's ancient rival in the Force had returned. The Sith, who were responsible for so many galactic wars a millennium before, and an ancient group outlawed by the Republic, was now in control of armies that spanned the galaxy. The Jedi, like everyone else, believed that evil came from the other side, being that Count Dooku of Sereno served the dark side of the Force and betrayed their order. In the past few weeks, it had become apparent that the darkness, the Sith, existed within both forms of government. They hoped that this next part would assist their case. They didn't say that out loud, by the way. Yoda told the people that an ARC trooper by the name of Fives had served his Republic with his entire heart. He was killed by one of his own brothers in the process of trying to reveal a plot, one that one of their fellow counselors had died trying to unravel. The Jedi stood before thousands of star systems, and Yoda told all of them that this plot went deeper than anyone could have imagined. They revealed that the Kaminoans had been in communication with Dooku, who went under the Sith alias of Tyrannus. Dooku, before leaving the Jedi Order, betrayed and murdered his best friend, Sitho Dyas, over the world of Felucia, and captured Chancellor Valorum's aide named Silman. Recently, 2 Jedi Knights, Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker, found Silman with the Pike Syndicates on Obadiah. It was there where Dooku finished this cover-up by killing Silman. What Dooku didn't know is there was a unit of Jedi and clones that went to his castle on Sereno, as well as a unit of Jedi on Kamino who used his absence to find the answers. Yoda then presented proof of numerous conversations between Tyrannus and the Kaminoan leadership of Lama Su and Nala Se. He continued, "In the case of Clone Trooper 5s, Nala Se sent out a blank inoculation to fool the Jedi so she and the Chancellor could cover up a plot, a massive deception that could turn the tides of everything." Yoda then revealed a full list of executive orders that Palpatine could use in the case that he wanted to take down the Republic. The Jedi played this carefully. If they leaned too hard on the Sith thing, they could lose their audience. But playing on Palpatine being able to strip the Republic from power and seize it for his own with military control was the way to do it. However, Palpatine rose to the podium. He told the people to calm their hearts. This was yet another sign of the Jedi believing they could have political leverage to control this galaxy. There were no contingency orders that he was aware of. His job was to protect the Republic and democracy. He was here to win a war, not squabble over made-up lies to remove him from office. He called these attempts from the Jedi preposterous, and then he flipped the script, telling the Republic that if the Jedi had the influence to change their hearts on a trusted friend, such as himself, then perhaps it was time the Republic asked itself a true question, one that asked if the Jedi were truly their friends, compatriots, or allies that they wanted to have serving them. The Senate erupted, and the 2 Jedi watched weeks of hard work fall out from under them. Palpatine had them in a bind, but before they could choke this away from themselves, the Jedi asked the Republic how it felt knowing that their wartime leader was hiding orders from them. The Jedi were transparent, full stop. There had been Senate oversight committees in the past, but there currently wasn't one. And what did the Jedi do? They came directly to them when they had the full story. They didn't hide it, they didn't try and keep it away from the public eye, they came directly to the Senate and told them, even without oversight committees. Both Dooku and Lama Su would be brought in for testimonials from separate locations around the galaxy. Master Windu told the Senate that they didn't have to trust them or rely on them, because as Jedi they were not members of the Republic. They were simply trying to prevent a war, and total chaos from unfolding at the hands of a man with too much power. This brought him to his next and final point. The Republic was being led by a man who can enact any one of these orders whenever he saw fit. With enough emergency powers granted to him throughout the war, he would be unstoppable. He could create an autocracy right at this moment if he wanted, and they, the Republic, could do nothing about it. Mace asked that they open their eyes and see who he truly was. Again, Mace stated, this was not a Jedi issue. Their order had survived. They had transformed their means of existence to transcend the last 25,000 years. Nothing would change that for them. If the Senate wanted to play this game and see if someone with too much power could strip it away from them, then that was their burden. If not, then the Jedi would leave it to them, avoid their burdens, and return to their fight in the galaxy. Mace and Yoda came into the situation playing hardball. They knew the Senate wouldn't be sympathetic to the Jedi, especially if they focused on Order 66, which they didn't. They instead focused on the institution of the Republic, showing them what it could become if someone like Palpatine could retain his power. If the Republic shied away from it, then that was their problem, not the problem of the Order. The Order would survive no matter what. That message resonated with everyone, especially Palpatine. He was now left in a political bind, and despite the Jedi making the strongest political message they could, it didn't matter. As a result, during a recess before Lama Su and Dooku were brought before the Senate, Sinjalik was given Emergency Code 114. The entire Jedi Order would abandon the Jedi Temple of Coruscant, and it would be a swift and decisive relocation. Instead of going to a known world, they would retreat to a hidden Jedi abode, because there was no reason to endanger the lives of their young or anyone else. At the end of the recess, it was clear that the Republic was lost. Palpatine was disgusted with Dooku's failure to keep this hidden. That would be dealt with later. Palpatine had no clue the Jedi Temple was being evacuated during these hearings. He just waited for his chance to execute Order 66. He knew he'd have to politically wait till the right moment to do it. But he bought the Jedi's bait too. And it was entirely based on the fact that they said that they'd been unaffected for thousands of years and constantly evolving. To Palpatine, he assumed this meant that the Jedi would remain on Coruscant. They didn't. So after more discussions and confessions, this time with Tyrannus and Lama Su, nothing would change. It would certify what the Jedi had said, but it would elicit no reaction from the Senate, and so following the hearings, the two Jedi would transfer control over the prisoners to the Senate Guard and the clones, and they would disappear. Palpatine needed to deal with the Dooku problem, and he planned on quickly expediting the execution of Order 66. He could get the Jedi to spread out, but then he realized they knew he was a Sith, and then he was informed that the Jedi had abandoned Coruscant. Mas Amedda was completely shocked by the outcome of all of this. All the evidence pointed to Palpatine being exactly who he was, but there was one thing Mas Amedda happened to overlook. From his political position as the aide to Valorum, Palpatine, and more, he was a part of that corruption. He didn't realize how corrupt everything really was. Mas thought that, in his support of the Jedi, he'd be heralded in as a protector of democracy, but as it turns out, Palpatine's supporters didn't care about the Republic. Their individual needs outweighed those of their constituents, and they cared not for their system, only the power the individual in charge would gain for them. To ice the cake, Palpatine was now forced to live with, the Separatists were also coming for Dooku. General Grievous got word that his master had been captured, and he traversed across the galaxy to stop the Republic and save Dooku. So a mere 5 or 6 hours after the final Jedi left Coruscant and vanished into hyperspace, the Separatists arrived, and a huge fight began. General Grievous during the space battle would realize that Dooku and Palpatine were detriments to his own movement. So while he came here to save his master, he realized that without Dooku, he could single-handedly win this war. And why keep the leader of the opposition around? Grievous's land assault would be devastating. He would claim Dooku's life and the lives of several Senate guards who didn't have the protection of the Jedi, and Palpatine, one expecting Grievous to take him away like in their original plans for the invasion of Coruscant, was killed too. These were not drawn-out battles or duels, simply a crushing of a windpipe here and the ignition of a lightsaber there. Palpatine and Dooku never expected Grievous to change up on them, which is why they were never able to predict his betrayal. The Battle of Coruscant would be a Republic victory, but at the cost of Palpatine and the Jedi Order that has since vanished. Grandmaster Yoda decided for once to do what was in the best interest of his order. As the eldest of their council and of their entire order, he knew what serving the Republic used to be like. He grew up prior to the Golden Age, shortly after the Dark Days. The Republic and the Jedi needed each other, and they grew with each other. At some point, that bond started to fracture, and it came after the High Republic ended. But Yoda understood that the government he and his order once worked side by side with no longer stood, and he could not consciously sacrifice his order for that government. This did not mean the Jedi were abandoning the galaxy. It meant Yoda saw the situation as unacceptable for his own order. They would still serve and protect, but they were not on a governmental stage. The fact that Shakti died for nothing sickened him. One of the Order's most beloved sisters died to help save their republic. It was time for another great reset. It was coming over the horizon. The Order had survived these before, and it was time to survive it again. Instead of returning to a relic location, one that everyone knew, the Jedi went somewhere new, and started building a brand new temple, training grounds, and archives. They were not going to allow the Sith to have a chance to find them, like that'd be a problem anymore, but the Jedi chose Endor. While this new home would cause individuals to abandon their order, one being Anakin, they would certify it as their home world, and they'd make peace with the local tribes of Ewoks. Skywalker's side quest had him running back to Coruscant, finding his wife, abandoning the Republic with her, and going to Naboo. The effects of the Battle of Coruscant redefined the war. It was no longer a war based around political leaders. It was a true combatant war, and General Grievous had every intention of winning. The worst part for the people of the galaxy is that wasn't what happened. Even though the Jedi were a crucial part of the war effort, the Separatists couldn't really regather a whole lot of territory. They were able to sport their reinforcements, ones that Grievous found after terminating the Separatist Council. But even that, with all those extra reinforcements, the Republic was able to entrench itself within captured territory. The Jedi, not as generals, returned to the galaxy to help people, but only in secrecy. They did missions for civilians, and those affected by the war. They did not fight clones or droids unless either was suppressing the locals. This whole galactic scale divide allowed for the rise of a third faction and even a fourth. Crimson Dawn under Maul wanted a seat at the table, and so did a splinter group of the Separatists that broke away from Grievous. Though this separate confederacy did not fight with or against Grievous, They established their own territory and defended it. This was done under Cato-Nemodian leadership, all in an attempt to maintain some semblance of power. The Republic was fractured as a result, but they were able to gather a government of sorts to maintain control over their war effort. This government mostly consisted of military officers, so even though it wasn't Palpatine who did it, the Jedi were right in their theorizing of what would happen to the Republic. For years, the galaxy would divide up into war, and warlords would become the ruling party. Luckily, Padme got off Coruscant when she did, because Tarkin and a new wave of Republic officers became rulers of their government and military. Grievous's confederacy unintentionally gave plenty of room for Crimson Dawn to breed and grow in the outer edges of the galaxy, giving it the strength to steal and take whatever they could, be it droids, military vessels, armor, or whatnot. The fact the Clone War extended for another 5 years allowed Maul's coalition to rise up. The pirate syndicate of Crimson Dawn wasn't the biggest competitor, but in terms of actual fighting, Maul was Grievous's biggest threat. The Jedi remained in hiding on Endor, assisting the people of the galaxy. Their forest Jedi temple was gorgeous. It was built into the massive trees of the planet, and it blended in with everything around them, even kind of resembling a more updated Ewok village. The Ewoks were friendly with the Jedi, and because the Order had cemented itself here, the young were thriving unlike ever before. Yoda did feel bad for abandoning the galaxy, kind of, but as Grand Master, his focus should have been on his Jedi, and now that it was, he saw an Order thrive unlike ever before. That alone was rewarding unlike anything else. Yoda and his Jedi were helpful, and they took care of everyone they could, but the war was something that not even they could sustain. This was the great reset the galaxy needed. Anakin remained on Naboo with Padme and now Ahsoka. Padme and Anakin had a single son named Luke, but they didn't have anything else. In the Age of Warlords, as this era was becoming defined as, many star systems opted out of the war, often forming miniature coalitions or system defense forces. Naboo had defenders such as Anakin, Ahsoka, and Captains Typho and Panaka. The Republic military was made up more of civilian forces than clones, and Tarkin's warlords attempted to use executive orders on the clones, but the list of executive orders had been lost after the First Battle of Coruscant. Many Jedi were able to help ferry clones to Endor or other clone colonies in their quadrant of the galaxy, full of clones that mutinied. The Jedi were truly helping the refugees of the war, but they could not interfere more than they had. Yoda wasn't willing to sacrifice Jedi lives for an ungrateful galaxy. This continued too, for more years to come. Maul would eventually reach his full potential and kill General Grievous in the 6th year of the war, following Palpatine's death that is. Maul would be killed when his base was overrun by Tarkin's doctrine 8 years after the First Battle of Coruscant. When the Republic warlords looked like they had victory, they lost it, because they turned on each other trying to have power. Following the 11-year Clone War, which did include the 2.5 years before the Jedi's message to the Republic, the galaxy would enter a Dark Ages. These were common across time. It's why technology of the Old Republic eclipsed technology of the Republic era. After several years of war machines ravaging the galaxy, there was a chance for peace, but also darkness. There was a chance for the Jedi to take the mantle of leadership in the galaxy, but they refused to take that burden. Their mission was to help individuals, to aid peace talks, and to be a guide for those lost. So much of what the Jedi had uncovered in their years since leaving Coruscant was what made their original order so strong. The morals, the understanding of the Force, and their connection to the Force were unlike anything seen in at least centuries. Now that the conflict was slowing down, it was the burden of the next generation of Jedi to do the right thing, to follow the direction of their elders and make a true difference. Being located on Endor changed everything for the Jedi, and it would be through this change that they could inspire growth. They would avoid politics, but as Grand Master Yoda stepped down to remain an instructor on Endor, the new Jedi leadership in the form of 3 Grand Masters, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Aayla Secura, were able to lead their order into a broken galaxy. The Dark Era would result in countless alliances being formed. Much of the intergalactic communication was ruined from the war, and many children of the new generation, the one bred through the war, were left with little concept of what the Republic was that stood before. It wouldn't be through the Jedi, but it would be through their guidance that a new system of government would be born on Hosnian Prime. It wasn't so far away from the rest of the galaxy, but still in the core, and it was surrounded by a couple of alliance systems that survived the Great War. The New Republic would be born then, and it would be a much different one than the one that stood before. In this age, many would see Palpatine and Dooku as the villains of an era before the war hit its greatest combat. The warlord era of the Clone War was regarded as one of the worst times in galactic history. Now that both were over, it was time for change. It was time for a restart, and with the Jedi Order, it would be possible. The Order would never remove itself from Endor, the theory being that in silence, or at least being out of the spotlight, they could avoid being recognized as an entity within the Republic. They wanted to remain the Order that helped people, not the one that existed in the public eye with their ivory temple present for all to see. On Endor, they were able to be heroes, saviors, and guides recognized galaxy-wide, knights of the New Republic, without having their whereabouts known about. The existential threat posed by the Sith that were now extinct was too great to gamble for a future Jedi Order. Messages crafted by every member of the first Endor Council would be saved and passed down to each new generation of counselors for the rest of time, allowing the Jedi Order to remain immortalized and survive whatever war or conflict arose in the galaxy to come. And that, my friends, is our story. Again, special thanks to all of our patrons: General Wells, Ozpin, Darth Vitiate, Seju Jagger, Root36, Hunter Belden, Rosebird, Angel Dust, Alexander Reese, The Beginning and End, Jango Fett Clone, Nick5098, Ben Ingram, The Big Red Pure Mark, Diamond Constant, Darth Nemesis, Lord Tib, CC2024, Gallivan Gaming, Tristan, Mandalore, Sir William 1767, Darth Revan, Granite D. Bane, Laliant, Sky Guy, Penguin, Cullen Rooney, Shark McDory, RJ38, Nick, Michael Erlinger, The Last Jedi, Apollo, Weewa670, Annika Stank Runner, CT7567, Toaster Oven, Oz of Oz, Darth Knox, The Eternal Padawan, Joshua Tem, Johnny Naguin, Seth Skeleton, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Lord Callie, Youngling Slayer 66, Mammoth Studios, Anakin003, Lord Draken, Fortis Lakes Star Wars, Erebus, Rex the Wolf, The Man with Few First Names, Darkseid46, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing. For supporting the channel, smash that like button, swim away, check out the things. PPC has a new video, Patreon's pretty cool. Let's talk about this story. Went in a much different direction than I thought it was going to go. Even I thought it was going to go. I really had a different idea going into this, and I'm really glad it went this direction. I really wanted to make a connection between the Old Republic, High Republic, and this current Republic. I wanted to show the gradual regression of Jedi warriors. In the High Republic, they're great warriors. In the Old Republic, they're fantastic warriors. And in the current Republic, they're fine. I'm not saying they're not. But I wanted to show how this era of Jedi are also seeing that the Republic they're serving is not a good system to be aligned with. I personally, my headcanon for Star Wars is that there are dark ages throughout time. That, like, say for example in 20,000 BBY, there's a dark age. That between the Old Republic and the High Republic, there's a dark age because the technology drop-off from the Old Republic to the current Republic wouldn't really make sense without a dark age. And I think that, at least in my mind, having like these great resets across time, these dark ages, would kind of at least make sense for the technological differences between such eras. And that's what I wanted to kind of incorporate here. But I hope you all enjoyed. I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.